Warning, this podcast contains spoilers for episode 1 of Ms. Marvel. You have now been warned. Be careful. There are spoilers here. Stepping out of the airlock to talk about Ms. Marvel, the debut of Ms. Marvel. Episode 1, Generation Y. We opened to the dulcet cocaine sounds of The Weeknd's Blinding Lights, wonderful poppy synth pop song about cocaine and going out clubbing. And it's the perfect soundtrack for a show about a high school teenager. And we watch that high school student, Jersey City resident Kamala Khan, as she is uploading the last chapter of her History of the Avengers, which she has done in very, very creative paper animation, just like in the comics. And we learn through this that, one, Kamala is a super, super fan of Captain Marvel, in particular, and all things superheroes in general. She even listens to Scott Lang's podcast, Big Me, Little Me, on the This Powered Life podcast network. And furthermore, Captain Marvel is just Kamala's absolute favorite. Yes, Captain Marvel is currently off-world doing stuff that no one is really sure what she's doing, and some people are criticizing her for abandoning Earth, but as Kamala says, can a woman just live? Plus, recall what Captain Marvel said in Endgame when Natasha's like, so are you coming back here? Are you coming back to help us out with stuff? And she's like,
I'm covering a lot of territory. The things that are happening on Earth are happening everywhere, on thousands of planets.
So she's dealing with a lot of stuff right now. Kamala signs off and teases her theory, one, that Thor is a gamer. True.
Correct.
She tells her subs, two total subs on her YouTube channel, that she'll be at AvengersCon this weekend cosplaying as, who else? Captain Marvel. We then meet Kamala's family, her mother Muniba, father Yusuf, Kamala's older brother Amir. Kamala heads off to her driving test, which is a smash hit, in the sense that she smashes into her driving teacher's actual car, and then we go smash cutting into the title sequence of the show. All of this is really done in a super poppy, really fun,
so fun,
energetic, lots of movement of the camera, really exciting cuts,
the art direction of building in Kamala's art into the walls.
So appealing. The way text messages come up, like in comic books, they are just so creative with the lettering. Texts will come up on the street, as part of the
neon lights.
In neon lights, on a window as they walk by it. Super fun and creative.
It's unlike, it is, I know people say this a lot, and but this really does feel different from any Marvel show, not just because of
Agreed.
the tone and the charming kind of kid friendliness of it all, but that visual aesthetic and camera work is very unique.
It's really, really, really fun. Visually speaking, it's easily the most interesting of the Marvel Disney.
Unbelievable, unquestionably.
Super fun. Okay, in the hallway at school, we see Kamala, walking through her school, and we see that she is basically a classic nerd, kind of an outsider character, though she does have her friend group that includes her best friend Bruno, who is just a genius level inventor. And then Nakia, who is just a super cool girl at school. Really, really fun, supportive friend group. Kamala somehow can't walk the hallways without bumping literally into everyone.
It's very John Hughes.
She's she's knocking to everyone, having to apologize to everyone. And finally she knocks into Jersey City cool girl influencer Zoe, who has, I think they said 8,000 followers on some social media platform that is not
I think it's hundreds of thousands.
I think they said 100,000, but it's less. I think they might have been hyperbolic.
She gets to 100,000 later.
I think she gets to it, but whatever the case, Zoe is super, super cool, and Kamala bumps into her, and then Kamala tries to compliment Zoe, but it goes very awkwardly, and then all of a sudden, the PA comes to life, and it's Mr. Wilson, Kamala's guidance counselor, who's like, Kamala Khan, please come to the principal's office. You're in big trouble. Just kidding, which is so embarrassing. Don't do this if you're a guidance counselor. Don't please don't do that.
When you're our age, you're this is so charming. I love this guy.
Yeah, at school you'd be like,
I hate him.
This is the last day of my life. I don't want to go on anymore.
You hear the name Mr. Wilson, and you think, that must be a reference to G. Willow Wilson, the co-creator. And it is, because when you go in his office, where we get to next, there is a name on his table and it says G.W. Wilson. And that's really nice.
I love that. So Mr. Wilson is a really, really cool guy. He is quite dedicated to helping his students succeed, and he's spending a lot of energy trying to connect emotionally and intellectually with Kamala and try to get her to stop daydreaming as much.
Okay, so first off, I just want to say, I get it.
You get what?
But it and to care about like college admissions is a big year. You got to think about that kind of stuff. But all of this like info dump triggers Kamala's like anxiety. She shuts down. She starts daydreaming. She's clearly got ADD. And
Obviously.
Mr. Wilson is like, listen, you gotta put your feet on the ground at some point. Later after school, Kamala is kvetching to Bruno about Avengers Con and how is she going to convince her parents to let her go? And by the way, this is the first Avengers Con ever. So this is a very historic event. You want to be there for the first one ever. And they've been working on Kamala's Captain Marvel cosplay, and this is all going to be for nothing. And so that Bruno has a plan. And it's this brilliant, very, very sophisticated plan of just ask your parents if you can go. Which is great. And by the way, like, pause here. As a child of immigrants, all of this stuff hit. Like the cultural differences, trying to bridge the gap between like the people you're growing up around and what your parents expect and the things that they expected from you when they came here, all the hopes and dreams that they had, and the culture that they come from, and trying to explain like all these weird things to them that they have no basis for understanding. All of that stuff. All of the home scenes, it felt like, it was like, man, I know what this is. I've had this conversation. I know what this is. Back home, Kamala is watching Felicity when her mom comes home carrying a box of old stuff from Kamala's grandmother, who's been just basically offloading a bunch of stuff as she gets older. In Muniba's words, she probably just wants to get rid of all this stuff before she dies. In there is a bunch of jewelry, some pictures and stuff, and then this very ornate bracelet, which Kamala is immediately drawn to, and then which Muniba snatches in a way that suggests that there's a story there. She doesn't like this thing for whatever reason. That's junk, she says. The bracelet goes back in the box goes into the attic, and Kamala goes off to accompany Mom on a bunch of errands. On the excursion, again, we get a feel for Kamala's experience as a child of immigrants, and all the family stuff is like great.
Something I really loved, and this was like, the visual aesthetic is there for everything, but something I thought was so cool that we don't really see in stories like this that are about like immigrant families. They don't try and make it like this is like a gritty, real look. Like the heart is what gives it the authenticity.
It's a big heart.
Everything is so stylized in the funnest way. Like that montage of when they go to like the Jersey City's like South Asian neighborhood, it's just so beautiful and engaging and
colorful.
vibrant. And they do that in this show a lot, where it's like, this is a story about like a young Muslim girl who gets to be in this vibrant kind of fantastical hyper real space, but that's always grounded with that like family story that feels really specific, which is powerful but incredibly universal. I got so many texts from people from all different places saying like, this was my parents, like this is how they acted.
That's absolutely right. I mean, you come to a place when you read enough stories and you watch enough TV and you try to create enough stories where you realize that every family, no matter what culture they're from, basically has the same kind of drives and incentives. They all want the best for their kids. They want their kids to go to school and get an education.
Yep.
You know, they want them to meet the right person. Like all that's why like sitcoms translate. That's why stories very often translate from place to place. And this is a prime example of that. It's like, yes, Kamala's family is from a different culture maybe than like the standard Scots, Irish, Protestant white culture, or, you know, but the things that they go through, the things that they talk about are the same as any family, anywhere, any place. So back home, we see that Bruno is very comfortable at the Khan household.
Beloved.
He is beloved over there. He's over there giving Mr. Khan a walkthrough on his custom-built, voice-activated Zuzu system, which is like a custom-made Alexa, which it can turn off the lights, it monitors various security cameras, it controls all the smart home stuff in the home, which also Bruno has designed. And the cool part about it is he has programmed it to understand Urdu, so the Khan family can speak to it in their native language and feel very comfortable doing so. Bruno then needles Kamala on his way out. He's like, did you ask your parents about Avengers Con? You gotta do it. And then she does, framing it really, and again, this is like, as a child of immigrants, this is exactly the way you do it. You do it by saying, hey, my friends want to do this. So it's really more a thing that they want to do,
and
I
like
want to. Yeah,
so...
you do like them. So Kamala frames it as, really, this is a Bruno thing. Avengers Con, like he wants to go, and it's like, I guess I want to go along with him. And of course, her parents have various problems with this.
Beta, you're still young, and there's so many strange people roaming
All
around at night.
strange boys, thinking God knows what and drinking God knows what.
Not a party, it's a convention.
They think it's a party. They don't, because
Right,
this is the first Avengers Con.
kind of a party.
There's not
Yeah.
really any context. Like, is this a party? Is she going to be late? It's,
Right.
It's really cute.
And then there's the question of, what are you going to wear? What are you wearing? My Captain Marvel costume suit's too tight. Says Medium. It's too tight. It is too tight, too revealing. This whole thing is haram. Kamala complains that and again, this is like a very, like, if you've ever had immigrant friends, or if you were the child of immigrant, you've seen a version of this conversation. Kamala then complains, Amir can go out and do anything he wants, and I can't do anything. I can't go anywhere. I can't wear anything. I have to ask permission to do everything, and then she storms off. Amir comes to talk to her later in her room, and he basically agrees, listen, I'll lobby the parental units on your behalf. Mm-hmm. And she then texts Bruno that, bad news, my parents said no. Next day, Kamala is putting on her, she's in her room, she's putting on her Captain Marvel costume, she's experimenting with a sash to maybe make the silhouette look a little less form-fitting, to make it, a little bit more palatable for her parents maybe. And then Muniba comes in to announce that, guess what? You can go to the con, but there are conditions.
I have a surprise for you. The Hulk! Wait, best is yet to come. Ta-da!
There's two Hulks. You're
I
going to be
just
two
wanna-
Hulks together at the Avengers Con.
I just want to say,
Yeah.
I need to give some context here, because this scene broke my heart. Kamala's mum made her a costume.
made it.
Made
was
a
beautiful.
Hulk costume
It was
that
very
she
well done.
felt was haram. And her dad comes into the room and he's like, Hulk! And he's dressed as the Hulk and he's painted green. Kamala very understandably is like, no, this is terrible. But
Yeah.
I know I'm old, because that scene like broke my heart and I was ready to like ground her. I was like, do you
I
know
felt
what
so
it's
bad
like?
for her mom, yeah.
I was like, do you know how rare it is to have parents who would support you and love you in something that they completely don't understand? That to me was like so real and so heartbreaking. And I think like they did a really great job of presenting just how supportive her parents are in that moment, even if it's in their own way.
I mean, Yusuf comes in full makeup, roaring like the Hulk.
And he does like Hulk smash hands.
Yeah, Hulk smashing. Kamala is like hard no. Absolutely no. Hard no. Immediately no. And the parents are crestfallen. They are heartbroken at
The
this.
dad is like crying.
He's literally crying. Later on, Bruno and Kamala meet on the roof of the apartment building to just talk over what are they going to do. Bruno, we see, is a super supportive friend, and would love it if it would go maybe beyond friendship, but is also fine if it doesn't. Like, is that going to hurt a little bit? You get the sense like Bruno would be probably dinged in the heart place a little bit if it doesn't go into beyond friendship, but he's happy where it is. He just loves hanging out with his friend Kamala, and he tells her, listen, just because there hasn't been a superhero who is a brown girl named Kamala who saves the world doesn't mean that it won't happen yet. it doesn't mean that it won't happen one day and that it wouldn't be you. And then he gives her his new invention for her costume, which is these photon gloves, these really cool like light up gloves that will simulate Captain Marvel's ability to project energy from her hands. Totally, totally cool. After school, Kamala sees Dad fighting with the Zuzu, which gives her an idea, which she then shares with Bruno the following day. And it's your classic Ferris Bueller day off ruse, but with 2020 technology and Bruno's, incredible genius level know-how.
You and your fancy Zuzu system are going to be my cover. So when there's a knock on the door, don't demand I'm changing. Finally, you being a genius is coming in handy.
Kamala will sneak out. They will then head off by bike to Avengers Con and then take the bus to, and we'll come back to this, Camp Lehigh is the place where Avengers Con is taking place, which is wild. Okay. And then Bruno's smart home system will allow them to monitor what the parents are doing and also to cover for Kamala's absence by, projecting, allowing Kamala to speak through a speaker, which is in her room, and she'll be like, I'm getting changed if someone tries to come to the door. It can work. They then will go to Avengers Con. Kamala will win the contest. They will sneak back, and no one will ever be the wiser. It'll be perfect. Now Kamala just has to finish her costume, and Bruno suggests, listen, why don't you put a personal touch on it? Kamala goes to the attic. She grabs the bracelet. Avengers Con the next day. Bruno and Kamala put the plan into motion, and it goes off with several hitches, but it does go off. Many hitches. Okay, like a lot of hitches.
A lot of hitches. Can I just also say, like, okay, you know what? The hitches happen, and then they arrive at Camp Lehigh. Let's talk about that.
Okay, so the number one hitch, the branch that Kamala uses to get in and out of her second floor window breaks. She lands on her back, is uninjured. So already I'm very impressed with Kamala's sturdiness.
There is an implication in this episode.
I agree.
That there is a legacy or a inherited superheroic power that is there.
She lands, and it should be a hard landing, and she's not hurt. So think about that. Then she loses her bike when they get on the bus, but whatever, it's time to go. They then arrive at Camp Lehigh for the con. And by the way, the place looks great. You might remember.
Can we say, like, what is Camp Lehigh if people don't know?
Camp Lehigh is the place where Steve Rogers first trained to become Captain America as part of the larger Captain America training program, including all the other cadets who he beat out to get the super soldier serum. And then later, years later, around 2014, the events of the Winter Soldier crisis, it is the place where Arnim Zola, I am Swiss, and the cruise missile is on the way, Captain. It's the place where Arnim Zola launches the cruise missile at Natasha and Steve, who have just found his the hard drives that he is on, and the place blows up. And now it looks great.
Looking great.
Now Camp Lehigh looks great now.
It doesn't only look great, but this is like the best comic convention that has ever existed.
Yeah.
I know it's not technically about comics, but it's the best superhero convention.
It really is super fun comic convention.
Magical. Like, if you've ever been to, I've been to many conventions, and they're all magical in their own way. But they are all, whether you're at San Diego or whether you're at Zine Fest, they are all really a giant room that has lots of tables with people displaying stuff. And if it's DC Comics, it's just a bigger table. And then you have your halls where you go and see stuff. But this is another thing about the production design and the world that they create for Kamala to go into. I love that she is getting to live in a dreamlike world where it's like, this is in your head what you imagine San Diego Comic-Con will look like.
The displays are amazing. They have a huge Mjolnir. They have
a giant
big,
Ant-Man.
They have a Scott Lang Giant Man display. They have like really cool T-shirts, and including like an America's Ass T-shirt. Like all the merch
Easter
is
eggs,
amazing. Like
you are gonna love this section.
It's so fun. And also we should add, Camp Lehigh is also the place where back in the 70s, Cap and Tony Stark, as part of the time heist, went back and stole the Infinity Stone. Which one is it? The Space Stone, right? Stole the Space Stone so that they could then, defeat Thanos. Anyway, Place looks great. Now it's time for the Captain Marvel cosplay contest. But disaster has struck. Zoe is there in the 1970s Carol Danvers costume, the one with the shorts and the high boots and the little sash. And she's not even a Captain Marvel fan, but there she is. And now Kamala's like, fuck, I'm going to lose. But like Bruno's like, listen, don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. Just get suited up. Kamala goes into the bathroom. She suits up. But she forgets Bruno's photon gloves. She rushes out, slips the bracelet on. Bruno's like, where's the gloves? She's like, I don't know. And he's like, don't worry about it. Just get the bracelet on. She gets the bracelet on, and immediately there's like a corona of really interesting energy that is just like surrounding her body that nobody else notices but her. She takes the stage. Everybody's looking at her. Her anxiety builds. Her nervousness peaks. And all of a sudden, accidentally, she has triggered this blast of energy, kind of like a solid crystallized light thing from the bracelet. She accidentally blasts the head off the aforementioned Scott Lang Giant Man statue, causing it to fall off, go rolling dangerously across the con floor, much like the boulder in Indiana Jones. Zoe is like, holy shit, I'm impressed. But meanwhile, the entire con is falling apart, and Zoe's being impressed quickly ceases when she is struck by the giant-sized Mjolnir that sends her sailing into a wall of fake clouds. Kamala catches her, making a hand out of the energy from her bracelet.
Which looks a lot like her comic book powers. It's the embiggened hand.
The embiggened hand, much like in the comic books. It's a very cool moment. And then Bruno and Kamala like, we got to get the fuck out of here. What is happening?
Like, what is happening?
I don't know what is happening. It is, of course, a dream come true. This is what she's been daydreaming about for years. Ever since the Emergency Avengers, she has powers. But they're very scary. She has no idea what's going on. She doesn't know how to use them.
Or how she got them.
Or how she got them. And right now, at this moment, what she's got to do is get back in her house. Bruno is like, don't worry. I'm not going to tell anyone. This is an incredible development, of course, but I'm not going to tell anyone. Your secret's safe with me. P.S. I love you. Back in her room, Kamala finds bad news. Your mom is there. And by the way, this is anybody's ever snuck out.
Yep, she's waiting in the classic
This is
mom
the
position,
fucking nightmare. This is it.
Funniest that this is another really great bit of visual storytelling. They show like the time when Kamala climbs back in the window, and it's like 8:40. Like it's like, not even
come
late.
on.
It's like she's
come
like
on.
a teenager, but it's and the mum's there and she's waiting like every mum in every real house and every teen movie house and every TV show house. She's waiting in the dark. She's in your room and she knows you weren't there.
Now, mom is very, very upset. And in this conversation, we again get these kind of hints that that Kamala's Nani, her grandmother, was definitely owned this bracelet, and probably whatever it is that Kamala's experiencing now because of these, we're just going to call them the quantum bands, that her grandparent was wielding them as well, and that whatever that experience was like for the rest of the family, her mom is scared and doesn't like it. And of course, beyond that, Muniba's just bitterly disappointed in her daughter who has lied to her and tricked her and has rejected their help and et cetera, all these hopes and dreams that they had for her. And here is Kamala being this secretive, lying person who's going to these parties that she shouldn't be going to, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And she poses a question. Do you want to be our daughter? Do you want to be like a normal person, good student? Or do you want to be like this daydreamer, cosmic powers person with your head in the clouds? She leaves. Kamala lays in bed, her hand glowing with this newfound power, and then she says,
Cosmic.
And then we go to the stinger. We get some credits. We go to the stinger in the offices of the Department of Damage Control. Agent Deaver is showing our old friend Agent Cleary a video of the most recent happenings at Avengers Con, saying, "I've never seen powers like this. We got powered people popping up all the time, but this is a new one." Bring her in, Cleary says, and it's pretty cool that Damage Control is going to be, I would imagine, a big part of this series, and we're on to episode 2 next week. Now, I thought this was really fun.
I thought it was so good.
It's clear that these are the quantum bands.
Yes.
Or something like the quantum bands. But my
Yeah.
question is this. Where's the other one?
When Maniba is in that conversation with Kamala, she says, don't get stuck in these fantasies. Like, that is dangerous.
Yeah.
And she talks about Nani. And I think there's this really interesting thing that they're positioning here, which is this idea that Nani had the powers, that she had the quantum bands, and nobody in her family believed her.
Right.
And they
She's
thought
this
she was
protect-
crazy. And
right.
she
She's
brought...
this protector of the universe.
And they're like, sure. And it's like
Yeah,
the
whatever.
1920s or something,
Yeah.
Like, I think that is really powerful. And I think, even though, like, we've had all our theories about the power changes, I love the way they did it. And I think the official Marvel line is, like, it aligns her more with the Marvels, who are going to kind of be her.
I
and
agree.
to me, I just thought it was really cool looking. But this theory and this kind of story about it being a family legacy, that really speaks to me. I think that the other band is somewhere already in Kamala's home and they had been split up to keep them apart. And maybe the mum had been... Because I'm assuming if this is a legacy situation, I would assume that at some point Nani had tried to share that power with Kamala's mum, and that wasn't something
She
that she
rejected
did. So I wouldn't be surprised if the other band is closer than we think, because it's been there to keep them separate, and now they're both in the space of Kamala. And I thought this was so cool. I love the show. I love the way it used comic art, and like, yeah, sure, she makes animated videos, but she's obviously a cartoonist. It pays homage to the stuff before. They had a little wall plaque that shouted out other people who've worked on Ms. Marvel, like G. Willow Wilson again, Jamie McKelvey. I love the way that they're paying homage to the art form, and I'm really excited. Like, I cannot wait to see
This has been
where
super
this
fun.
goes.
It's a super fun show, and as we learn more about what we again assume to be the quantum bands, we'll do a deep dive into just what those are in the comics version.